Hi everyone, this is Mike Mills, and I'm excited to be part of Humans of Telecom.
Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to Humans of Telecom, the Unplugged podcast. This is your host Anurag Aggarwal. As you all know, this is where we move past the usual industry conversations to really get to know the people behind telecom, their journeys, their turning points, and the experiences that have shaped them into who they are today. And today's guest is someone who brings both depth and perspective from decades spent right at the heart of telecom transformation. With over 25 years in the industry, including more than 18 years with the same organization. He's been at the front row seat to how service providers have grown, adapted, and evolved in a rapidly changing landscape. His experience spans cloud communications, UCaaS, CCaaS, CPaaS, eSIM, and IoT, giving him a well-rounded view of the industry. But today, we'll be focusing less on these fancy acronyms and more on the journey behind it all, the experiences, the lessons, and the moments that have defined his path. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mike Mills, Managing Director, Service Providers at Gamma. Mike, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this journey. We'd love to hear more about you. Which part of the world do you belong to? And from where are you joining this podcast today?
Hi Anurag, great to be here. So I'm originally from a place called Newcastle in the north of England. For those that aren't from England, the general term for someone from there is a Geordie. And I spent sort of the first 7 or 8 years of my life there. Then I moved to Yorkshire, which is again a place in the north of England. And then today I live near a place called Farnham in Surrey, which is in the sort of southwest of England, somewhere between London and Portsmouth. Kind of, for those that know the area, it's not a million miles off the M3 motorway.
Interesting, Mike. So basically, if I talk about your presence within the ecosystem, you have always been specific to the UK. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Although the role today is a much more global role, I've kind of always predominantly worked for UK companies.
All right. And beyond the geography, if you talk about your journey, how did you find your way into telecom? What's your journey been like? Did you come in by accident? Was it planned? And how's the journey been for you so far?
So I think I had quite an interesting journey into telecom. So I was always interested in kind of IT and technology. So when I was a student, I worked in a shop called PC World, and PC World basically was part of Currys. So for those that don't know, they did what it said on the tin. They sold computers, and there was at that time, and this is kind of going back quite a long way. In the days of pre-broadband, there was dial-up internet. And Dixon's had a really successful dial-up internet product called FreeServe. And basically what you did is you collected a CD-ROM from the shop, and then you put it in your computer, and it basically gave you free internet dial-up using 0844 numbers. So I was doing that, and a friend of the family actually was working in telecoms for a company at the time called Planet Online. And I was invited to come and do a kind of university project on business processes. And I went and spent a day in this internet company, and I was then hooked on that as an industry, decided that's what I wanted to do. That's where I wanted to go. So graduated from university with a degree in business systems and IT, and then managed to get a job working for a company called Energis, who had just bought Planet Online. Now, what I found out sort of after joining was that actually Energis were the company that provided all of the infrastructure to Dixon's for the FreeServe product. So I went from literally giving out the discs to working for the company that delivered all the infrastructure for that service way back in 2000. So yeah, I think an interesting journey. And then from then I kind of worked in kind of wholesale voice, wholesale internet for Energis. Then I spent some time in the mobile industry doing mobile. I spent some time working for a Cisco partner selling large enterprise networks. And then I landed in Gamma in 2007. And at the time, Gamma was a relatively small company, but it had gone big into VoIP. So it was probably the first company in the UK to get a SIP trunking product in market. and a hosted PBX product in market. And fast forward to where we are today, we're the market leaders in SIG trunking. We got 1 million users on what today is UCAS, and I've kind of been on a journey within that business from a kind of standard sales guy selling to partners in region to running what is essentially our global wholesale business. So I think quite an interesting career, sort of steeped in the internet in a variety of ways.
So, firstly, as I can make out, the techie spirit has been core to you right from the start. So, it's not something that came in incidentally. It's something which has been a part of your personality from the very beginning. Is that correct? Yeah.
I've always been a techie at heart. I think I'm technical enough to be dangerous, or just enough to understand without kind of ever being able to get into the detail. I think it's safe to say when I was at university, programming was never really my forte. I was always much better at the business side of it, but being able to understand at a macro level kind of how the technology works has definitely been really valuable, just in terms of being able to sort of communicate on a level with a CTO and know what you're talking about to an extent. So yeah, I've always been a techie and a bit of a geek at heart, and I don't think that's ever going to change. But I don't think that's kind of unusual in this space. I think lots of us are kind of secret techies or want to be secret techies.
Fair enough. I take that point. And nearly 20 years in a single organization. Wow, that's quite amazing, especially in today's day and age where you don't about hear such a long term loyalty. But if I talk about this journey and any memorable or impactful moments, would you have some of those to share with us as well?
Yeah, look, I think there's certainly a few. So I think the kind of one of the most impactful ones for me was I inherited this division of Gamma in about 2014, 2015, and it was a declining part of our business that was totally unloved. And by kind of deciding to prioritize into cloud communications and then really be really focused on doing that, we've managed to really quite aggressively grow this part of the business when others have been flatlining or declining. We've actually managed to take it from, I think in 2014 the revenues were circa 12 million, and I think last year they were 96. So we've managed to do that, and that's nearly all kind of organic growth. So to do that, and we've won some of the largest brands on the planet in terms of customers. So that at a sort of macro level is I think probably the sort of memorable, most impactful moment for me. I think on a personal level though, and as sort of part of that journey, I'm really proud that we managed to win Best Sales Team of the Year at the Global Communication Awards, the ones held by Capacity 3 years in a row. So I don't think many teams have done that. And that's certainly something on a kind of personal level I'm really proud of. And also, I won an entrepreneurial award with the GTCM guys maybe 3 or 4 years ago as well. So I think some kind of personal career highlights, but also certainly some very, very good business moments to be proud of.
Interesting. So I think winning 3 years in a row. So I think you really cracked the code for having a fantastic A sales team, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And now we move on from work to focusing more on the human side of Mike. So, Mike, firstly, you've been around in the industry for so long. We've been repeatedly talking about that. But if there is something surprising or shocking that people may not know about you, what would that one thing be?
All right. So, I mean, for those that know me well, this isn't particularly a surprise, but I actually have an identical twin who also works for Gamma and has worked there for 14 years. And most people don't know that. Well, the amount of times at trade shows, kind of people have gone up to him thinking they're me, it is kind of quite astounding. And there's been some often hilarious incidents where people have come up and given him a big hug and he doesn't know who they are, or they've kind of given him funny looks because they thought he was being rude. And that keeps playing through time and time again. I think pretty much every year that happens. So I'll either get a WhatsApp or a call from someone I know really well saying, I've just bumped into your brother. I could have swore it was you. And I had a 5-minute conversation with him without kind of realizing, and then it clicked.
Interesting. And have you ever played this to your advantage as well?
Oh, look, when we were younger, we most definitely did. I think the one thing that stands out for me was we were about 14, and he actually got me to dump one of his girlfriends at the
Oh,
time.
God.
But when she found out about it, she never actually spoke to me again. But I mean, that was certainly helpful for him and less helpful for me. But yeah, so that was certainly one incident. And we used to have all sorts of fun with supply teachers. when we were at school where we just swap places and pretend to be each other for lessons and then swap back.
Cool. And what's your brother's name?
Steve Mills.
All right. So I think for the world at large, please beware. You have now been forewarned that in case if you see a certain Steve Mills lurking around you, be careful. Mike just come back into his childhood playful mode and they might just be swapping roles. So be careful. And Mike, beyond this fascinating story of yours, how else do you recharge yourself personally? What are your passions and interests like?
So, I mean, one of the things I've done is I have 3 Hungarian Vizslas as dogs. If anyone knows dog breeds, they're kind of world renowned for being really active. So a lot of my sort of spare time is spent out walking them, kind of getting out in the countryside and fresh air. They sort of give you no choice. So that's kind of what I spend a lot of time decompressing doing, just getting out, walking, getting into nice spaces, woodlands, etc. Doing that. Additionally, I like to mountain bike occasionally, and I'm a Newcastle United football fan, so that's been more miserable than happy over the last kind of 46 years. But we were quite successful last season. So yeah, I mean, fundamentally, it's kind of those kind of things: get out walking dogs, listening, watching to football, and the occasional mountain bike ride when I get the time.
Awesome. So that's what you do beyond your techie heart as well. So that's good to see a diverse set of interests. And now, Mike, we come to a very interesting question, which is 2 truths and a lie. So you have to share 3 interesting statements with us. Hopefully, 2 of them are true. One of them is a lie, and I should be able to guess that. So do you have 3 such statements for us today?
I do. So the first one is what I would call a twincident with shopping. So when I was a student, me and my brother ended up buying the same piece of clothing from the same shop at the same time in different parts of the country.
Okay. And you call this what? A twin syndrome?
A twincident shopping incident.
Ah, okay. Twincident. Okay. All right. Okay. The second one.
Second one is when I was 13 years old, I was at Olympic standard for long jump.
Okay. And the third one.
The last one is I've done 10 tough mudders.
You've done what?
10 tough mudders. So they're a kind of a muddy obstacle race where you get electrocuted and
Okay. I didn't quite get the
etc.
last word right, and it sounded like something obviously very different. All right. So if I get it right, you said that the first one is that in your younger days, you've been through a lot of twincidents, right? The second is that you've been an excellent athlete in long jumping at an Olympic level. And the third one is that you've done 10 tough mudders. So, am I right that I've captured them correctly?
Yes.
All right. So, let's see now. In my view, given all that you've spoken about and your passion for mountain biking, I am going to presume that the third one is true. Given the interesting anecdote you've told between Steve and yourself, I'm going to take a chance and say that the first one is also true. And the second one about Olympic long jump, I'm going to take a chance and say that that one is a lie. So the first and third are true, and the second one is a lie. So am I right out here?
You're actually not right. So
Okay.
it was a bit, I've only done 6 tough mudders, not 10. I gave up and said that was enough. I'm never doing any more.
Interesting. So let's hear a bit more about the long jump feats that you must have had. So how has that experience been for you?
Well, so I mean, anyone that knows me, I'm not the tallest of individuals, so you might think that's a stretch, but at the age of kind of 13, I was pretty tall for my age, and I was exceptionally good at long jump. So yeah, I think I broke the school record, which at the time was at an Olympic level for someone of that age to be able to jump that far. So it was over 5 meters at the age of 13, which is, at the time was kind of pretty unheard of. I then went on to kind of represent the school at sort of county athletic meetings and all that sort of stuff. And then rather annoyingly, pretty much at 14, I just stopped growing. So a kind of future successful career in any sort of track event would largely go down the pan at that point because he just not physically not tall enough to do well in some, he didn't have long enough legs to be able to take that any further.
Uh-huh. And the twincident concept that you were talking about, how has that experience been?
There's been a few of them over the year, but you just you kind of learn to accept it and almost laugh. And it's like, and it even happens today. We'll frequently buy almost identical clothes, without really thinking about it. And he lives 250 miles away. We don't see each other that often, other than really at work, and then for
Mhm.
sort of family events. But yeah, that was probably the most memorable. But there's been countless others over the years where we've ended up doing that sort of thing.
So I guess it's not only the facial features with which match, but even the mental wavelengths keep colliding
Yeah,
with each other, right?
almost identical interests, almost the same medical ailments, kind of, think slightly differently, but yeah, fundamentally, two people from one egg, I guess, is the analogy I'd use, and that certainly rings true with us.
Yeah, and the very fact that you both are still part of the same organization is one of the biggest coincidences, I'll say.
Yes, yeah. I mean, for those that are interested, Isabel Paradis has actually done a twincident video of both of us, so somewhere online that is available if people want to
Uh-huh.
have a look at it.
So maybe when we'll be posting the episode on LinkedIn, in the comments, you can actually share a link to that coincident episode. That'll be quite
Yeah, I'll,
interesting.
I'll dig it out for sure.
Awesome. And now, Mike, we are down to our final question. So, if there is one thing that you could change about your life, what would it possibly be?
I think if I could go back, I would sort of tell my younger self just to be more confident and be braver and believe more. I think lots of people at that age kind of lack the boldness and confidence to be able to sort of make brave decisions, and that would certainly be it for me. Would be a bit braver, be a bit bolder, and enjoy your time at that age because it's a great time in life.
Yeah, I guess that's something which the youth ends up worrying a lot more about possibly getting settled and about playing it safe. And I think your younger days are meant for a lot more risk taking, a lot more soul search, and trying to experiment as much as possible. So, yes, I totally agree with you on that. All right. And now, Mike, while we're having a very fascinating conversation, but we're sadly down to our final section, the sign off section. So, our signature question to you: what does being human mean to you? What sort of a human being would you want the world to remember you as?
Being human to me is about kind of enjoying life and loving life, and kind of enjoy being with people, and treating people with kindness and treating people fairly, and being generally a good person. And I think if I get remembered for one thing, it's good guy, someone that cared about others, and someone that ultimately drove to try to make others kind of be successful and enjoy what they do.
Yeah, I think that's again a fair point. I think something similar was mentioned by one of the other speakers as well in one of the earlier episodes. I think finally we are all part of the human network. And at some level, what matters is that being human requires us to have that human connection and try to uplift each other. So I think that's a fair point, and I'm really hoping that you are succeeding in doing that endeavor.
So do I.
Awesome, Mike. So I must say it was a very fascinating conversation with you. I don't think we've ever met so far, but I do hope that in the coming months, maybe at one of the events or maybe sometime in the UK, one gets a chance to cross paths, and would love to have a conversation with you. And I do hope the conversation will be with you and not with Steve, though I'd love to meet Steve as well.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have to make that happen, and you never know if he's around. Then we might get him on the show as well and get his perspective.
Absolutely. I think that's much needed because till now we've heard just one side of the coin. So it would be good to hear from Steve as well. But on that note, thanks a lot, Mike. Thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful to have you here on the show. And as always, to our wonderful listeners here, thanks a lot for tuning into the show. We hope this episode gave you a good glimpse of the human side of Mike Mills. Born in Newcastle and a true techie at heart, he is someone who stayed deeply connected to the craft from day one. A leader of an outstanding sales team with a trophy cabinet that speaks volumes about the impact and excellence he drives. Someone with a treasure trove of fascinating stories, especially when it comes to life with his identical twin, our dear Steve. And finally, someone who was once a professional long jumper during his youth, proving he's always been someone who knows how to go the long distance. That for us is Mike Mills. So, if you enjoyed today's episode, do stay tuned in because we shall soon be releasing yet another episode and another compelling story from the telecom space. And do follow the podcast on your preferred streaming channel. On behalf of Humans of Telecom, this is your host Anurag Aggarwal signing off for now. Take care.